find your table. I don't think you have you all gotten them yet? Your table? This is a pre-test. What's a pre-test? I know. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a test before you all learn. So there's 3 here. Anybody sit here? Okay, so every table should have them. It's a pre-test. So you might not know all the answers yet. I'm going to see what you already know, and then we're going to test you again after to see what you learned. Okay, so go ahead and take a few minutes. You really only have about 2 minutes to do this. So work fast, and when you're done, put your pencil and the paper in the little white box so that I know your whole table's ready. Yep, you can start now. Okay, the directions. Check which of the following characteristics you'll find in a historical fiction book. So, it's checking the ones you think describe historical fiction. You can check all of them, you can check none of them. You don't have to answer number 6. Nope, you just leave it blank. You only check the ones that actually fit. Nobody's here? He's here. Alright, you got about 1 minute. So read quickly and go ahead and pick the ones you think fit. Finished? Oh, good. You don't have to answer number 6. Sure. You only check the ones that actually fit. When you're done, put it in the white basket so I know the whole table's ready to go. Either one, just not in front of you. You can put your pencils up too, you won't need them for a couple of minutes. Alright, read your last one and go ahead and put it under there or in the basket. You put your books under your chair for me. Alright, so we're learning about historical fiction, correct? Good. So I'm going to need you all to pay extra close attention to me. I don't know all of your names. I know some of them, but I don't know all of them. So you're going to have to watch me and be very quiet so we can do this lesson, okay? So we're learning about historical fiction. It is a genre. Who can tell me what a genre is? Yes. A type of book. You all just finished a book that was a certain type of genre. Anybody remember which book you all just finished? Yeah, tell me the name. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And who can tell me what genre that was? Yes. Well, it was fiction, but it's even a more specific genre than that. Yeah. It wasn't a fairy tale, what was it? Romantic something. You're going to have her help you out. Yes? Romantic literature. Okay, remember that? Everybody remember it's romantic lit is what we called it. And what was some of the characteristics of that? What's a characteristic? Something that describes something, correct? So what was a characteristic of romantic lit? Just tell me one. Yes? Yeah?
Something scary.
Okay, it's got eerie, spooky, something along those lines. Yes?
Supernatural.
Supernatural goes with that, right? What else?
Long away and far away.
Okay, he taught us about long ago and far away, right? So those were the characteristics of romantic lit. The book has to be all of those characteristics to be considered romantic lit. And romantic lit can be fiction, right? We're to learn about another type of fiction, historical fiction. What do you think that might be? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so here are the characteristics of historical fiction. So things that describe historical fiction. It's based on historical events, right? It's not the actual historical event, but it was based on it. All right, real life settings. What does that mean? Yep. You could go there. It's an actual real place, right? It's not some fantasy or fiction type place. It's a place you could maybe actually go, right? What else? Anybody else have another for real life settings? All right, the characters are realistic. What does that mean? Yes.
They're not like Tinkerbell, they're real.
Good. That's a really good example. They're not like Tinkerbell. They're actually real, right? It could be somebody that could actually happen. We don't have fairies flying around here, so we know they've got to actually be real. They'd be more like you guys, right? What else? Some characters may be actual people from history, but the story is not completely true. Okay? You might give me an example of somebody from history that might be in a book. Yep. Okay? Yeah?
Abraham Lincoln.
So we could maybe read a book about Abraham Lincoln that wasn't actually true, but kind of true, right? Good. And then conversations are fictional. Why might conversations not be true in that book? Yes. Okay, we might have made it a little different. Yep.
They might not have really had those conversations.
But they might have had something like it, right? Good. We weren't there, right? The author that's writing books now might not have been there hundreds of years ago when that actually happened. Excellent. All right, well, I've got some examples to show you. So let me turn this on. Anybody read the Little House on the Prairie books? Anybody check those out before? So that would be historical fiction. So here's a picture book version. All right. What can you tell just by the cover that might make that historical fiction? Yes.
There's a farm and well, they're building.
Okay. They're building. What type of house are they building right there? Yeah.
A log house.
A log house, and we still have those today. Some people still build those, but they were very common back then, right? Here's the chapter book version of the Little House. What are they doing right there that's kind of different? Yeah. They're planting, right? What other kind of clue does it give you on the cover? Yes.
They have a horse or something in the back.
The horses is a big giveaway, right? Back then, horses were kind of like our cars today. That's how they got around. That's how they did all their work. What else? Okay, she's holding a shovel and planting. There's one other clue I kind of want to get to. Yep. Their clothing. It's very old, right? That's old-timey. One more example. This is Miss McCord's personal pick. This is a book set during the Great Depression. So that's an actual historic event, right? It's an actual historic time. It's one y'all might learn about in the future. So this is about them. What clue can you kind of get from this one? Mm-hmm. It involves a train. And that back then also, after the horses, trains kind of came. And that was a big form of transportation, right? Okay. What movies? Anybody think of a Disney movie that might kind of fit? Yeah? I don't know about cars. Are those characters realistic? Cars don't talk, right? Well, mine tells me not much. What else? Uh-huh. No, not necessarily. I've seen, anybody seen Pocahontas?
Yes.
Who's the main character of that?
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas. And she is actually a real person. But what makes that historical fiction and not an actual real story?
Is it only true?
Not all of the story's true. What else? What about all the characters? There's a tree that talks and a raccoon that talks, and that doesn't actually happen, does it?
No.
I don't think so. All right, so today I'm going to read you all a book, but you all were just off last Tuesday for something. What were you off for? Anybody know? Yes. Election day. And what happens on election day? We elect people. We vote for them, correct? So I'm going to take a class vote. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to take a vote on your all's favorite Halloween candy. Okay? I'm going to put your all's ballot right in front of you and you can vote. Okay? You'll need a pencil. So do it quietly. I shouldn't hear a lot of talking. Yes? Well, because I have to be recorded. It's kind of weird. I'm going to make it into a movie. Be a superstar. No, I'm not really making it into a movie. Alright, so you all can go ahead and vote. Why is there like, who didn't get one? Raise your hand. Look around. Who didn't get one? Okay, are the people in the C chair? No, she's a B.
I'm an A.
She's an A. Yeah?
Because girls back then couldn't vote.
You figured out my trick early, didn't you? Girls back then couldn't vote, could they? Just the boys. And really just the grown men. Right? And even more than that, hey guys. Even more than that, guys that had land were the only people that could vote. If I didn't own anything and I was a guy, I couldn't vote. So back then there was a lot of stipulations on who could vote and who couldn't. Okay? Set that aside. We might have time to vote in a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and get into our story so we have time to finish it. We're going to read a historical fiction book about somebody that kind of changed how we voted. Okay? Yes. Who?
Madeline Breckenridge and Dolores Clay.
Well, we're not learning about them today, but we are going to learn about another one that kind of started it. Okay, this is called I Can Do That. Ezra Morris gets the women the vote. So listen quietly. I think you're going to have to use your ears to hear the story, but what else? Why do you think I'm doing this over here with the document camera? Yes? So you can see the pictures, and the pictures, like we looked on the examples earlier, tell us a lot about why it's historical fiction, right? They give us a lot of clues. All right, so you might not be able to see the words, but this way you can see both sides of the page. All right, in 1820, 6-year-old Esther McQuigg studied her mother making tea. I could do that, she said. Make tea, asked Mama. The older girls get to do that. But I want to learn, said Esther, and she did. She pumped water into the kettle and set it on the wood stove to boil. She scooped tea leaves into the teapot, then poured steaming water over them. Esther strained the tea into cups, one for her mother and one for herself. As they sat near the window of their New York house, Esther saw men riding by in their best suits, some carrying flags. "Where are those men going, Mama?" asked Esther. "They are going to vote for the next president of the United States," Mama said. "Will Papa vote?" "Yes, Papa always votes." "Will you vote, Mama?" "No, dear, only men can vote." When Esther was 8, she watched her mother sew a fine seam. The needle pulled thread in and out, tracking tiny, even stitches across the fabric. Esther felt her hands mimicking her mother's. "I could do that," she said, and she did. She made clothes for her doll from scraps, and when her stitches became neat and straight, she sewed a shirt for Papa. When Esther was 11, her mother died, and for the first time she saw her father cry. He gathered his 11 children together. "I don't know what we'll do without your mama," he said. "I'm depending on each of you to be brave and to take care of one another." Esther, 8 of 11, cried too, but then she said, "I can do that, Papa," and she did. When Esther was 19, 6 feet tall and on her own, she earned a living making dresses with leg of mutton sleeves for society ladies. When the ladies wanted hats to match the dresses, Esther designed and made those too. Soon she thought of opening a millinery shop. "You are much too young to run a business," she was told. "I don't see why," was Esther's reply, and with that she opened a hat shop in Owego, New York. Esther started attending abolitionist meetings at her church, but a throng of people who believed in the right to own slaves threatened to stop the meetings, even if they had to tear down the Baptist church where they were held. "You can't do that," Esther said. "I'll stop anyone who tries." When Esther was 28, she married Artemus Slack, and a few years later had a son they called Archie. But when Artemus died in an accident, Esther made a big decision. "I'm moving to Illinois," she told her friends. I'll claim the land Artemis owned there and raise our son." "You can't do that," her friends cried. "Illinois is on the very edge of civilization. It's full of dangerous people and wild animals." "Yes," she said, "I can." And that was that. In Illinois, she fought long and hard to claim Artemis's land, but was denied her inheritance because she was female. So Esther opened another hat shop. Esther met and married John Morris, a merchant and immigrant from Poland, and in 1851 she gave birth to twin boys, Edward and Robert. But John had a hard time making a living, so while Esther raised the children, cooked the meals, and washed the clothes, she helped earn the money too. When Esther was 46, she went with John to the presidential election polls and watched through the window while he voted. "You know," she told him when he came out, "I could do that." "Politics is the business of men, my dear," he said. "Humph," said Esther, "it's our country too." When war broke out between the northern and southern states, Esther was proud that Archie joined the victorious fight of the North to end slavery. Soon after, an amendment to the Constitution granted all men rights of citizenship, including the right to vote. When Esther heard Susan B. Anthony speaking out about women's rights, Esther began to hope someday women might vote too. In 1869, Esther was 55, and her 18-year-old sons moved to the newly formed Wyoming Territory, where John and Archie, who'd gone there the year before, waited. Esther and the boys traveled by train across miles of prairie, then by stage over rocky hills to South Pass City, a dusty, hurriedly built town where gold had been found. Most of the 2,000 people who lived there were rowdy young men. They worked in the mines by day and drank in the saloons by night. The Morrises moved their belongings into a small log cabin, and South Pass City became home. John ran a saloon, Archie bought a printing press and started a newspaper, and Esther opened another hat shop. But with 6 men to every woman, there were always the need for someone to nurse the sick and wounded, sew clothes, help deliver babies, and give motherly advice to the few young women in town. "I could do that," Esther said, and so she did. One day, Esther read a proclamation tacked to a wall. "All male citizens 21 and older are called to vote in the first territorial elections." Esther looked around at the disorderly young men. "It's time I did that," she said. When Esther's sons watched her march toward home, they knew it was more likely that things were about to change than that things would stay the same. Esther invited the 2 men running for the territorial legislature to her house to speak to the citizens. Then she sent out invitations to the most influential people in the territory. "Come for tea and talk to the candidates." She scrubbed her tiny home from top to bottom, washed the curtains, and ironed her best dress. When the candidates and guests arrived, Esther served them tea. "One thing I like about Wyoming," she said, "is how everyone is important. It takes all of us to run the town, women as well as men." "Yes," her guests agreed, "and it's a place where people aren't afraid to try new things." Her guests agreed again. Esther smiled. She turned to the candidates. "Then, would you, if elected, introduce a bill into the legislature that would allow women to vote?" Suddenly, in that tiny room full of people, not a sound was heard. Finally, Colonel William Bright spoke. "Mrs. Morris, my wife would like to vote too. She is intelligent and well educated. Truth be told, she would be a more informed voter than I. If I'm elected, I will introduce that bill." Not wanting to be outdone, the other candidate, Herman Nickerson, also agreed. Applause broke out in that tiny cabin, and Esther dropped to her chair. "Thank you," she said. People warned her that once the bill was introduced, the men of the legislature would have to approve it, and the governor would have to sign it. But Esther had seen things that were not likely to happen. Every day, she wrote letters and visited legislatures to make this bill would happen too. And it did. On December 10, 1869, Governor John Campbell signed this bill into law. Wyoming women get the vote. Women across the country rejoice for the women of Wyoming. But some people didn't like it. Only 8 days later, Judge James Stillman, the county's justice of the peace, turned in his resignation. He refused to administer justice in a place where women helped make the laws. Word went out that a new justice of peace was needed. Esther's boys turned to her. "Mama, you could do that," they said, and so she applied. Archie, then clerk of the court, proudly swore his mother in, making Judge Esther Morris the first woman in the country to hold public office. But Judge Stillman refused to turn over the official court docket to Esther. "Never mind," she said. "Archie, will you please go to the mercantile and buy me a ledger? I'll start my own docket." And of course she did. On September 6, 1870, 1 year after her tea party, Judge Esther Morris put on her best dress and walked with her husband John and her sons down the dusty street to the polling place. She would be one of 1,000 Wyoming women voting that day, the first ever given that right permanently by any governing body in the United States. As they walked, John, who still didn't think women should vote, tried to coach her on which candidates and issues to vote for. Esther held up her hand. "I can do this," she said. And she did. What do y'all think?
Man.
What'd she do?
She
Uh-huh.
made women, she made women able to vote.
Okay, she got women able to vote in Wyoming, right? What else did she do?
She did all the things that she said she could.
Yeah, she put her mind to something and she said she could do, and she did them, right? What was happening before she did anything? What were people telling her? You can't do that, right? Her own husband told her she couldn't vote, and what'd she do? She voted. She changed everything, right? Yeah.
She didn't give up.
She didn't give up, right?
Even though she was trying to accomplish.
Good. What makes this book historical fiction? Either things you heard or things you saw? Yes. Okay, what'd you see that makes this historical fiction?
If you go back a few pages,
Uh-huh.
it was a page where it wasn't that one. It was like right after maybe.
Can you remember? Can you describe it to me?
It was like there was somebody like falling off a house thing and.
Okay. What about this picture? Maybe you can describe me something on that picture that is historical fiction. The people are on the horses, right, in the background. And then what's this thing? A carriage, a stagecoach is what they used to call it. That was around before we had cars, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Anything else you all saw that you might want that makes it historical fiction?
There was a couple pages before that,
Okay.
but I forgot what. Like I saw one name in the picture.
Okay, can you remember it? No. Did you have one? Yes, right here. Did you have one? Yeah, she changed it so everybody could vote. What'd you see? Oh, it could be what you heard. What'd you hear? Okay, they used to not be able to vote. We know that's true. What about on this page? Look over here. What's it say? In 1869. What about that year makes you think it's history? It was a long time ago, right? We're in the 2000s now, so that was hundreds of years ago, right? What else did you hear? Look at this, miles of prairie. So back when like there was a lot of prairie. Okay. So were the characters realistic? Yeah, were there any Tinkerbells? No, right? Characters are realistic and it actually happened back then. As there is a real person too. So just like we talked about, they could be real, and they are. Alright, you're going to take your post-test now. So now you should be very educated on historical fiction. You're going to check the ones that are actually related to historical fiction. Great job today, guys. your short one. There you go. Alright, so you can do it quietly. You don't need to ask your friends. Look and see and check which ones actually fit the description of historical fiction that you just learned. When you're done, put it in the white basket so I can grab it. When you're done, you can read. You can put it in the white box for me. Oh, you can just go click the button too. Yeah, I'll get it. Thank you. Sure, you can do that. Yep, you can put them all together. I mean, you can circle too if you want. If you're finished, you can get your book out and quietly read. It's about time for us to line up. You want to put the vote in there too, huh? Vote quickly. It's about time to line up. Do you want to vote? Modern day is the opposite of historical. You can color as many as you want. What? Yes, you can pencil it in. Alright, if you're finished with your vote, put it in here and then you all can line up. This table can line up. This table can go ahead and line up. You can line up this table. Are you ready? Yes. Class is over. You can get one on your way out. But you all can go line up.